cats and kittens. If you're watching this video, you've probably heard about the backrooms, which we will not be talking about today. I thought the backrooms was kind of a fun little segue into the video because we'll be talking about the genre it explores, analog horror. Now, analog horror is a rabbit hole in itself, but what makes the backrooms part of that genre is due to the fact that it's told in the form of found footage. Found footage is also a rabbit hole, but if you don't know what it is, it's a story told in the form of long-lost VHS tapes or camcorders. The idea is that someone discovered this video, posted it on YouTube, and a cult-like following amassed pretty much overnight that theorizes and makes fan edits and fan art and all the fan things. This is what happened to the backrooms, which got really popular really fast. I don't want to give it too much credit, but it's definitely a founding father of YouTube analog horror. So many new creators nowadays are making incredible horror content with beautiful stories behind them, which is something I truly admire. Now, before we begin talking about our channels, I'd like to talk about my inspiration for today's video. Or one of today's videos. There's gonna be 3 today because it's the kickoff of my channel. I've always wanted to make an analog horror series here on YouTube. I have a huge storyboard for what I want to do, and I have concept art of all of the characters and about 20 pages of a script, but I really don't have much experience in the genre that I'm meant to be emulating. So while this video is supposed to be storytelling and informing, it's also a bit of a personal project so I can learn more about analog horror and the storytelling techniques of it. Anyways, bois vert means green wood, or green bark really, but the name doesn't have much meaning in regards to the series. It's made by Parker Boisvert, and it's a retelling of his personal story during the pandemic, rewritten into an animated series. It's not entirely animation though. It goes between animated to live action pretty frequently. Boisvert tells the story of Oriole, who struggles with depression and social anxiety. As the series goes on, Oriole falls into a deeper pit due to someone named Room. Room is our main antagonist, and is a dark, shadow-like creature. He's meant to represent depression and other various mental illnesses that Oriole suffers from. Now, Boisvert is terrifying, obviously, but this isn't just because of the graphics and animation. Boisvert is terrifying because it's real. It can happen to anyone. During the pandemic, depression, anxiety, and suicide rates skyrocketed. And while this is incredibly sad, it's unfortunately the truth for a lot of people. Boisvert is a truly personal story, and the themes it explores, while they make for a great story, are something people need to talk about more. While people have always had anxiety and depression, it hadn't been truly normalized until the 70s to 2000s. Boisvert is a horror masterpiece because it raises awareness in a less commonly explored medium. Usually, horror goes for cheap thrills like jump scares, or milks a character and makes 6 movies out of it. But the wonderful thing about YouTube horror is that it's all original. The Man in the Suit, a relatively new analog horror series on YouTube, brings up things I don't think I'd ever think of normally and tells an intricate story with them. I haven't heard of anything remotely like the story in The Man in the Suit, which makes it so unique. The Man in the Suit takes a genuine thing, Godzilla from the 50s, and turns it into something twisted to tell a story. Boisvert takes something very real, depression and anxiety, and capitalizes on it to raise awareness of mental illnesses. Because of Boisvert, hundreds of people have shared the stories of their struggles during the pandemic. And honestly, I'm all for it. If horror can become a new creation, a better one that tells a real story and has a message, I think that's incredible. If you want to check out Boisvert, I say go for it. It's right here on YouTube for absolutely free, and it's a great study for symbolism, metaphors, and art or animation. I've learned so much from Boisvert, and if you think you could too, give it a shot. It's terrifying, but if you get past the graphics and listen to the story it's telling, it's extremely moving. And now we move on to the second series of the day. Petscop on the surface isn't scary so much as unsettling. It's, again, an analog horror series here on YouTube, created by Tony Domenico. The insane thing is, it's not real. It's supposed to be found footage of an old video game, but the video game doesn't exist. The series follows a man named Paul, who's playing this game to prove to someone that it does exist. I don't really know how to summarize this, so Okay, so I found a summary online and I'm going to put it on the screen now. Please pause to read. Okay, so there's your summary. Petscop is, let's face it, unrealistic. Not unrealistic per se, but confusing. There are a lot of elements to Petscop. Windmill, Shadow Monster Man, Rebirth. That's the one we'll be talking about. Petscop brings up Rebirth a lot, and like with Boisvert, it tells the story of a very real, very scary process that's since been made illegal. Attachment therapy via rebirth. Rebirth is a process in which there's a simulation of being born over again in an attempt to make an adopted child bond with their adopted parent. Candace Newmaker, the victim of this procedure and the one Petscop often references, was 11 when she died. She was wrapped in blankets so tightly she was suffocating. Pillows were put on top of her, and 4 adults put their full body weight on her. The goal was to get her to wriggle out of this womb so she'd have an attachment to her new mother, Jeannie Newmaker. She died after 70 minutes, and only 2 of the therapists were jailed. I don't want to go too deep into this, not just because it's vile and criminal, but because I don't want to make light of what happened or play it off as something Petscop used as a simple storytelling technique. Candace deserved to live, she deserved to be loved, and she did not deserve to be put through what she was. This video is not in any way meant to be making light of Candace's situation or trivializing a murder. This is meant to inform, educate, and explain. Petscop references Rebirth often, and this is because the main antagonist is attempting to rebirth his old friend. At the beginning of Petscop, when there were only 4 or 5 videos on the channel, everyone believed that the purpose was to tell Candace's story and raise awareness. Now that Petscop has ended, we understand that it was only used to tell the big picture story of Petscop. Looking back, it feels like Petscop took advantage of a really horrific event to make a story entertaining, which is obviously a bad decision, but I do think it raised awareness about these sorts of things. I never would have found out about the Newmaker case if it wasn't for Petscop, so I am grateful in that way that I learned something new due to the series. I did want to talk about more analog horror, but I think we have time for an honorable mention. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a series originally posted to YouTube, but its 2nd season was adapted to British television channel Channel 4. I don't think it's exactly an analog horror series, but it is unsettling due to its gruesome graphics, which some would consider body horror. It's filmed in the form of a Blue's Clues style show. In every episode, the main characters Yellow Guy, Red Guy, and Duck learn about something new. It's whimsical, but also has an underlying theme of real-world lessons. In Season 2, Episode 2, the main characters learn to deal with the grief of losing their friend Duck. Don't worry, he comes back. It's fun in a spooky way, and it's all puppetry. It doesn't really count as analog horror, though, which is why it gets an honorable mention. All of the characters I mentioned in this video, all of the creators in this series, and all of the fans, this video is of no hate to you. While there are criticizable things in these shows, as there are with anything, I personally enjoyed every series I mentioned today. I think they're all incredible in their own unique ways. If you want to check out anything I mentioned in this video, I'll have it linked in the description. As always,